The nightfall enveloped the northern heaven spiritual academy as Chen sat quietly on his bed, his hand holding the white dragon spirit pearl. A soft white glow radiated from it, and within the smooth, round pearl, a white dragon spiraled and let out a long, resonant roar. The deep dragon's cry caused the air to tremble slightly. Chen stared at the white dragon spirit pearl in his hand, a flicker of doubt crossing his eyes. This pearl contained immense spiritual energy, some of which he could manipulate, but he sensed that it had more to it than just that. Whenever he tried to probe further into the pearl, however, he encountered resistance. The power inside seemed to be pushing back against his efforts. The resistance appeared subtle, yet it was terrifying. Even Chen was hesitant to force his way in, knowing that the backlash could make him suffer greatly. It seems that the white dragon spirit pearl has been sealed, Chen muttered with a furrowed brow. You're right, a voice suddenly rang in his mind. It was the 9 nether sparrows' consciousness. Do you know what's going on? Chen asked, feeling a bit of hope. He quickly sent the question in his mind. The white dragon spirit pearl is likely a relic left behind by the white dragon supreme. However, it has been sealed, and with your current abilities, you probably won't be able to break it, the 9 nether sparrow replied. Can you break it? Chen quickly asked. Right now, it would be quite difficult, the 9 nether sparrow replied helplessly. It wasn't fully recovered yet. What should I do then? Chen was slightly taken aback. If the seal couldn't be broken, was he just supposed to wait? To break this seal, you may need external power, the 9 nether sparrow pondered. External power? What do you mean? Chen was surprised. Where could he possibly find such a powerful external force? You'll be heading to the Thunder Domain tomorrow, the 9 nether sparrow answered. Chen's heart skipped a beat. You mean the Thunder Domain? His eyes brightened. The Thunder Domain was home to immense, terrifying external forces. If he could tap into them, perhaps he could indeed break the seal within the white dragon spirit pearl. The 9 nether sparrow replied. Chen nodded slightly, gripping the white dragon spirit pearl tightly in his hand. A burning desire flashed in his eyes. He couldn't wait to enter the Thunder Domain and use its power to break the seal within the white dragon spirit pearl. All right, then tomorrow we'll head into the Thunder Domain. Upon hearing Chen's words, the 9 nether sparrow's voice was filled with excitement. This time, I'll refine enough thunder spirit pearls. We only need a bit over 2 million Lingji to buy the blood essence of the North Abyss Dragon Kuan, right? Chen smiled and nodded. For this heavenly rank mission, he had earned 4.5 million Lingji, and with the 7 million Lingji needed for the North Abyss Dragon Kuan's blood essence, only a little over 2 million was left to go. Though it was still a significant amount, it was much closer now. Chen gently caressed the white dragon's spirit pearl in his hand, his curiosity and anticipation rising. Once the 9 nether sparrow obtained the North Abyss Dragon Kuan's blood essence, it should be able to fully recover and break free from its spirit beast constraints. It would become a true divine beast, right? At that point, it would surely become incredibly powerful. Chen couldn't wait to see that moment. The next day, early in the morning, after parting ways with Luoli, Chen set off immediately, heading straight towards the Thunder Domain. Outside the Thunder Domain, in the distorted space, countless students were pouring in from all directions. Among them, Chen could sense the presence of many strong spiritual fluctuations. He clicked his tongue in amazement. It seemed that many were working hard to cultivate for next month's hunting war. Beyond the distorted space, massive floating stone platforms stood in midair, with a terrifying stream of people coming from all directions, all making their way to the Thunder Domain through these platforms. Chen landed on one of the giant platforms. As he scanned his surroundings, his gaze suddenly stopped at the edge of the platform. There stood a gigantic silver steel, crackling with lightning. Around the steel, a crowd had gathered, pointing at it and occasionally gasping whenever silver lightning flared from the steel. Chen couldn't help but direct his gaze towards it. He saw that the steel was inscribed with names that flashed with arcs of lightning, giving it an extraordinary appearance. What is this? Chen asked, surprised. He didn't recall noticing this steel last time. This is the Thunder Domain steel, which records the names of outstanding students who have pushed their limits within the Thunder domain. Mu Chen's eyes suddenly brightened as his gaze swept across the information on the stele. At the very top, he saw some familiar names. Xin Songxing, Thunder Domain Ascension, highest level, 9th layer. Li Xiantong, Thunder Domain Ascension, highest level, 8th layer. Su Xian, highest level, 7th layer. Crane Demon, highest level, 7th layer. Li Pong, highest level, 7th layer. The stele was covered in densely packed lightning runes, each name representing an extraordinary achievement. The Thunder domain had 10 layers, and the further one went, the more terrifying the thunder power became. Those with weaker strength dared not remain in these layers. The Thunder domain stele also reflected the hidden talents within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Besides Shan Songxing and Li Xiantong, who had created a noticeable gap between themselves and others, nearly dozens of names closely followed Su Xian and Crane Demon. Some names were not seen in the heavenly ranking, but clearly, their strength was not to be underestimated. Impressive, as expected of Shan Songxing, Mu Chen murmured. The highest level he had ascended to before was only the 4th layer, yet Shan Songxing had reached the 9th. If he pushed further, he might even reach the final layer of the Thunder domain. This level of power was truly astonishing. Li Xiantong was no slouch either. With his ascension to the 8th layer, just behind Shan Songxing, this guy truly had the strength to challenge Shan Songxing. This time, I'll see how far I can go, Mu Chen thought, a glint of excitement in his eyes. The last time he entered the Thunder domain, he was only at the Divine Soul realm. But now, having advanced to the Heaven merging stage, his abilities had grown immensely. Mu Chen glanced at the Thunder domain stele and without hesitation, moved forward, stepping into the distorted space. As the lightning flashed, he was already within the thunderous Thunder domain. The sky in the Thunder domain was still dark and ominous. The endless thunder kept striking down, with the rumbling of thunder echoing throughout the space, shaking the very earth and sky. Mu Chen was no stranger to the Thunder domain, so he was somewhat familiar with the place. The first layer's thunder power was too weak and not suitable for his current strength. Without a second thought, he immediately pushed his speed to the limit and moved deeper. Now, compared to his previous visit, Mu Chen was far stronger. In less than 10 minutes, he had surged into the 4th layer. However, he barely stayed in the 4th layer before feeling that the thunder power there could not help him anymore. Without hesitation, he moved on to the 5th layer. To enter the 4th layer in the Thunder domain, one generally needed to be at the Heaven merging stage. The 5th layer required a significant boost in strength, typically reaching the late stages of Heaven merging or even the peak of the Heaven transformation stage. As for the higher layers, the strength required became even more demanding. Of course, level alone was not the sole measure. One could still pass through with powerful techniques. With Mu Chen's current strength, ascending to the 5th layer wasn't difficult at all. But once there, he sensed the thunder power wasn't enough to break the seal inside the white dragon's spirit pearl. He began his ascension once more. In just a few minutes, he encountered the barrier to the 6th layer of the Thunder domain. But with a single punch, he shattered it with a violent surge of spiritual energy. He flashed through the gap and entered the 6th layer of the Thunder domain. Boom! As Mu Chen entered the 6th layer, a deafening roar of thunder rang in his ears, almost making his blood boil. Looking up, the 6th layer's Thunder domain space was even darker. The thunderclouds stretched endlessly across the sky, with bolts of lightning resembling giant serpents, splitting the heavens. The scene was apocalyptic. Mu Chen sensed the violent spiritual energy in the air. After a moment, he shook his head. Still not enough. He paused, gazing into the depths of the thunderous space. Beyond that lay the 7th layer, where even those in the early stages of the Heaven transformation realm couldn't withstand the thunder's assault. I need the strength of the mid-Heaven transformation stage. Mu Chen's eyes narrowed slightly, and then his figure shot forward rapidly. In order to quickly break the seal within the white dragon spirit pearl, he could only rely on the immense thunder power within the Thunder domain. Therefore, he had to push deeper into the domain. The power of the mid-Heaven transformation stage, though formidable, wasn't enough to stop Mu Chen. his hands clenched tightly, his black eyes reflecting the world of thunder, exuding a sharp and fierce aura. After flying through the 6th layer of the thunder domain for some time, Mu Chen's speed began to slow. Ahead of him, the space twisted, and a thunder barrier stretched across the heavens and earth, blocking his path. Beyond the thunder barrier, numerous stone platforms appeared, with several figures standing on them. The people who could stay here were mostly not unknown. They were well-known figures within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. They cultivated here in the hopes of one day breaking through the barrier and entering the 7th layer. Mu Chen's arrival attracted a lot of attention, and especially when some people noticed his strength, their faces showed surprise. The fact that someone at the heaven merging stage could reach the 6th layer, despite the numerous gazes, Mu Chen paid no attention. He approached the massive thunder barrier, his palms slowly tightening. He had to break through this barrier and dash inside. Boom! The massive thunder barrier stretched through the heavens and earth, with huge arcs of lightning leaping across it, releasing tremendous spiritual power fluctuations that seemed to twist space itself. Mu Chen stopped 100 feet away from the barrier, his expression serious as he stared at this obstruction leading to the 7th layer. Indeed, it was no ordinary barrier. Even someone in the early heaven transformation stage would find it difficult to tear open a gap that could allow entry. Mid-heaven transformation stage power? Mu Chen tightly gripped his hands, then took a deep breath, directly sitting cross-legged in midair, his eyes closing. What is he doing? Some on the stone platforms outside the thunder barrier noticed Mu Chen's strange actions and were immediately puzzled. Hey, this person looks familiar? Among the curious, some vaguely recognized Mu Chen. After all, he was no longer the unknown freshman he had been at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. His battle with Li Xiantong, where he withstood 3 moves without defeat, had left a deep impression on many of the senior students. It's the new student who took on Li Xiantong's 3 moves and didn't lose. His name is Mu Chen, right? Ah, it's him. No wonder he's daring enough to come to the 6th layer of the Thunder Domain with just heaven-merging stage power. But look at him. He seems to be trying to break through the Thunder Barrier to the 7th layer? That can't be possible. Even we can't get through it. Yeah, this kid might have survived Li Xiantong's 3 moves, but his strength is still too weak. Charging into the 7th layer is just asking for death. Whispers erupted on the stone platforms, all eyes converging on the young figure sitting in midair. Mu Chen, however, ignored the murmurs around him. He focused his mind, and after a while, his fingers rapidly shifted into hand seals. One after another, spirit seals were quickly formed. The speed at which the spirit seals increased was astonishing. In less than 2 minutes, 100 spirit seals were swirling around Mu Chen. As the seals whistled through the air, they unleashed incredible spiritual power fluctuations. At present, Mu Chen's cultivation and spirit arrays had reached the level of a 4th-rank spirit array master. With full concentration, he could easily create a terrifying number of spirit seals, up to 100 in this case. On the stone platforms, the onlookers were struck by the sight of 100 spirit seals swirling around Mu Chen. Their eyes widened in surprise. 100 spirit seals represented a significant threshold. Crossing it meant reaching the level of a 4th-rank spirit array master. Now it was clear why Mu Chen, despite being at the heaven merging stage, was able to enter the 6th layer of the Thunder Domain. Whoosh! Whoosh! While they marveled, the 100 spirit seals around Mu Chen suddenly shot out, merging with the surrounding heavens and earth. In an instant, the spiritual energy in the air surged violently. Light beams of spiritual power shot out, intertwining and forming intricate and complex array diagrams. As the spiritual light traced the formations, a wild and uncontrollable power surged through the air. Above them, the light slowly gathered, and everyone could see a complicated spirit array, shaped like a lotus, gradually forming in the sky. Buzz! Like a massive spirit array resembling a black lotus of light. A trembling hum echoed as waves of light rippled through, carrying with them powerful fluctuations of spiritual energy. This spirit array was none other than the demon lotus spirit slaying formation. In the past, Mu Chen had to expend an enormous amount of energy to set up such an array, But with his current level of power, it was clear he no longer had to drain his strength as he once did. Mu Chen slowly opened his eyes, and in his black pupils, flickering lights shone. Then, with a change in his hand seal, a faint voice rang out amidst the thunderous roars of the sky. Demon Lotus Spirit Slaying Formation. Boom! The massive spirit array slowly twisted, and the black lotus tilted, its petals gently unfurling. At the center of the lotus, a surging black light gathered. Whoosh! A violent black beam shot out from the lotus heart, blasting through the sky and striking the thunder barrier with a tremendous force, under the astonished gazes of many. The thunder barrier rippled violently, thunderous waves spreading continuously. The point where the black beam struck showed signs of distortion. Mu Chen's gaze remained calm as he flicked his finger. The giant black lotus spun rapidly, and the black beam followed suit, drilling into the thunder barrier like a drill bit. Hiss! The thunder arcs flashed wildly, and at the point of the thunder barrier, where the thunder light had become almost solid, black marks began to appear. Then, those marks were gradually torn open, creating a hole about 10 feet in size, enough for a person to pass through. "It actually tore it open," someone exclaimed, their voice filled with shock and envy. In the sky, Mu Chen suddenly stood up, and without hesitation, he turned into a streak of light, darting like lightning through the crack in the thunder barrier. As Mu Chen passed through the crack, the massive spirit array behind him slowly dissipated, and the crack quickly began to heal, leaving behind many astonished and envious gazes from those outside. As Mu Chen entered the crack, the darkness before him lasted only for a brief moment before the surroundings suddenly brightened. He opened his eyes slightly, gazing in awe at the scene before him. It was a dim world, with dark thunderclouds hanging so low in the sky that it seemed as if they might touch the ground. The oppressive atmosphere made the sky seem incredibly close, and the feeling was extremely suffocating. Boom! Mu Chen looked up and suddenly realized that the 7th layer of Thunder Domain was covered by a fine drizzle. He extended his hand and let the raindrops fall on his body. He immediately shivered. As he clenched his hand, the raindrops revealed themselves to be condensed from thunderous energy. When they landed on his skin, they brought a slight stinging and tingling sensation. The thunder energy in the 7th layer of Thunder Domain was incredibly dense. Mu Chen's eyes flickered with surprise. No wonder the requirements to enter the 7th layer were so high. Training here was impossible without some fortitude. Otherwise, one wouldn't be able to endure. The thunder energy here is so mighty, it should be more than enough to use its power to break the seal. Mu Chen pondered for a moment, then his figure shot forward. After several minutes, he stopped in front of a towering mountain peak. The peak was barren, with no plants, looking desolate and lifeless. At the top of the mountain stood a metallic-looking lightning strike platform. Mu Chen landed directly on the platform, sitting down cross-legged. Above him, the thunderclouds had become so dense and condensed that they looked like blobs of ink, quietly floating in the sky. There were no violent flashes of lightning, but amidst the swirling black clouds, faint glimmers of thunder flickered, releasing a terrifying wave of energy. The thunder energy in the 7th layer was far stronger than in the 6th layer. As Mu Chen gazed at the thunderclouds filled with terrifying thunderous power, he wasn't worried but rather pleased. The stronger the thunder energy here, the more effective it would be in breaking the seal on the White Dragon Spirit Pearl. Mu Chen sat on the cold lightning strike platform, meditated for a moment, then took a deep breath. Spiritual energy began to flow into the platform beneath him, humming. When the lightning strike platform was activated by Mu Chen, the dark thunderclouds in the sky began to slowly stir, gradually spreading apart like an ancient thunder beast about to reveal itself. Mu Chen's face grew serious as he could clearly feel a terrifying, violent fluctuation forming in the heavens and earth. Boom! A deep thunderclap rang out silently across the sky. Mu Chen looked up, his eyes fixed on the thunderclouds. Just as he braced himself for the impending thunder strike, he suddenly saw torrents of rain dropping from the black clouds, pouring down toward him. The raindrops gleamed with dazzling silver, each one carrying an incredibly violent force of lightning, more terrifying than the thunder from the 4th layer. This was a thunderstorm. With a rush, the rain poured down relentlessly, falling heavily upon Mu Chen's body. Bang! Bang! Mu Chen's body was struck as if by thunder. The raindrops exploded upon contact with his body, the terrifying power leaving red marks on his skin, the intense pain quickly spreading through his body. Mu Chen couldn't help but inhale sharply. He hadn't expected the seemingly gentle rain to be so powerful. The raindrops cracked open, surging over his skin, seeping into his body through his pores, the faint hissing sound of lightning flowing through his muscles and veins. A sharp pain mixed with a numbing sensation spread throughout his body, the intense agony giving way to a strangely pleasurable, almost sickly sensation. Grimacing, Mu Chen stared at the rain pouring down from the sky, clenching his hand. In a flash of white light, the white dragon spirit pearl appeared in his grasp, emitting a low dragon's roar. He focused on the white dragon spirit pearl in his hand, slowly raising it above his head. The pearl hovered there, emitting a faint glow that formed a protective light barrier, blocking all the rain. When the raindrops hit the barrier, ripples spread across its surface. Mu Chen placed both hands on the cool surface of the lightning strike platform, channeling his spiritual power into it, pushing the platform's effectiveness to its maximum. Boom! The lightning strike platform erupted with blinding light, nearly engulfing Mu Chen's body. A powerful suction force exploded outward. Boom, boom. As Mu Chen fully activated the lightning strike platform, the thunderclaps in the heavens grew louder, and the dark thunderclouds in the distance began to gather toward this direction. The entire world seemed to darken in an instant. Only the white dragon spirit pearl above Mu Chen's head emitted a glowing light, standing firm in the storm. Mu Chen gazed up at the ink-like thunderclouds, murmuring to himself, "Let it strike me with all its might." Boom! As if hearing Mu Chen's words, the thunderclouds above suddenly contracted, and in the next instant, torrential rain came crashing down. Whoosh! The brilliant thunderstorm poured from the sky, most of it drawn toward the lightning strike platform where Mu Chen stood, while the rest fell to the earth. The surrounding barren peaks were occasionally struck by the rain, shattering into rubble and slowly turning to dust, leaving countless deep, bottomless holes in the mountainside. No wonder this place was devoid of life. Such a harsh environment would make it impossible for even the toughest plants to survive. Buzz, buzz. Mu Chen remained focused, his eyes fixed on the white light barrier overhead, where the white dragon spirit pearl remained motionless at its center. The pearl emitted a constant white glow, blocking all the raging thunderstorm. The white light barrier rippled as more and more raindrops slammed into it. The storm's power was astonishing, yet the white dragon spirit pearl remained steadfast, unshaken by the violent onslaught. Mu Chen was both shocked and delighted. Shocked by the pearl's incredible power, able to withstand such a thunderstorm, and delighted by the greater benefits he would gain once he broke through it. Above the sky, the thunderclouds, as dark as ink, writhed violently, seemingly aware of the power of the white dragon spirit pearl. As they twisted, the raging thunderstorm grew even more ferocious. The sight of it made Mu Chen's heart race. In this storm, even someone at the early heaven transformation stage would likely be instantly wounded if they charged in. Roar! The white dragon spirit pearl was hit by the torrential downpour, as if provoked by the force of it. Amidst the swirling white light, a deep dragon's roar erupted. The white light surged forth, scattering the incoming silver lightning rain with sheer force. Boom! In response to the provocative dragon's roar, the terrifying thunderclouds above immediately reacted. As the clouds twisted, the storm began to merge. Whoosh! Whoosh! The small raindrops fused together, transforming into massive liquid silver lightning bolts, as thick as a person's arm. They pierced through the sky, carrying an unstoppable sharpness and violence, striking the white dragon spirit pearl with brutal force. The clash of these two immense powers sent ripples through the air, distorting the very fabric of space itself. The white dragon spirit pearl and the layer upon layer of thunderclouds collided ferociously. Mu Chen sat cross-legged on the lightning strike platform, looking up at the battle between the two forces. He kept activating the platform, increasing its power. He wasn't worried about the white dragon spirit pearl breaking. His fear was that the thunderous power wouldn't be enough to break the seal within the spirit pearl. If that happened, his efforts would have been in vain. However, he had underestimated the white dragon spirit pearl. As an artifact left behind by a supreme powerhouse, even after the passage of time, it remained extraordinary. For 3 whole days and nights, the thunderclouds rained down with unimaginable force. Yet, the white dragon spirit pearl's brilliance remained undiminished. The terrifying spiritual energy fluctuated, scattering the liquid silver lightning as it came. In this area, due to Chen constantly activating the lightning strike platform, thunderclouds continued to be drawn in, gathering together. For 3 days and nights, the savage rain never ceased. This white dragon spirit pearl is too resilient. Chen couldn't help but click his tongue. Under such relentless bombardment, even someone at the mid-heaven transformation stage would have been unable to withstand it for so long. Yet, the white dragon spirit pearl seemed as lively as ever, showing no signs of the seal being broken. "I don't believe you can hold out forever." Chen gritted his teeth and once again poured his spiritual energy into the lightning strike platform, causing a burst of intense light. For the next 10 days, the storm continued. The thunderstorm rampaged, and though the white dragon's spirit pearl dimmed considerably, its seal remained unbroken. This left Chen speechless. No wonder even the 9 nether sparrow had said there was no guarantee of breaking the seal. It turned out that the seal was this terrifying. Chen looked up with a grave expression. For more than 10 days, he had been continuously activating the platform, and now the sky within 100 miles was shrouded in thunderclouds. The oppressive darkness made it feel as though the very space itself might collapse. The thunderclouds here were now terrifying, and even Chen felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that if he were in the same position, he wouldn't have made it out unscathed. Such a reckless method of drawing in thunderclouds was something few dared to do, even in the 7th layer of Thunder Domain. While the thunderbolts here could temper spiritual energy, overdoing it would turn a person to ashes. Sigh. Chen exhaled, his gaze locked on the thunderclouds that were gathering like ink. The force of the thunder had become so violent that he could now see a river of lightning running through the clouds. The river flowed slowly, releasing a terrifying aura that made the hairs on his neck stand on end. "I can't keep dragging this out," Chen muttered to himself. At this rate, he had no idea how long it would take to break the seal, and with the hunting war only a month away, he couldn't afford to waste too much time on this. "I'll have to take a more forceful approach." Chen hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth and snapping his fingers. The Thunder River, formed over the past 10 or so days, was a result of the wild accumulation of thunderous power here. The violent nature of the thunder made even Chen's heart race. However, for him, this was the only method left. Whoosh! A burst of white light shot into the sky, standing out starkly in the dim surroundings. On the outskirts of this thundercloud-covered area, several figures hovered in mid-air. They were cultivators from the 7th layer of the Thunder Domain, who had been alerted by the disturbances from Chen's side and came to investigate. They were astonished that someone dared to provoke the thunderclouds in this 7th layer. Even they would hesitate to step into that area now. This piqued their curiosity. Who could it be that had been hiding for so long, only to reveal themselves with such a tremendous commotion? "Something is charging into the thunderclouds." Suddenly, someone exclaimed as they saw the white light tear through the dark sky, heading straight toward the thunderstorm before disappearing into the thunderclouds. "There's already a thunder river forming in the thundercloud." What is that person thinking? Don't they realize how terrifying a violent thunder river could be? The cultivators from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, who were considered among the best in the North Tsang continent, were taken aback. They immediately retreated in unison, their faces filled with shock. Chen, of course, was unaware of the chaos he had caused. His gaze was fixed on the white dragon's spirit pearl, which had transformed into a streak of white light, tearing through the thunderclouds and then charging into the thunder river. Boom! At the moment of impact, a deafening sound rang out, shaking the very heavens and earth. Boom! The overwhelming thunderlight burst forth from the thunderclouds, and under its might, the dark thunderclouds rapidly began to dissipate. Within 100 miles, the once oppressive thunderclouds scattered quickly. As the clouds cleared, a thunder river, around 100 feet wide, became clearly visible in the sky. It resembled a giant dragon, rumbling as countless bolts of lightning flickered within it, crashing down toward the ground. The lightning was made of liquid, possessing terrifying power. Chen watched in awe as a mountain peak was destroyed, reduced to ashes by a single bolt of liquid lightning. His scalp tingled, and he quickly attempted to shut the lightning strike platform, but being at the peak of the mountain, liquid lightning was already speeding toward him at lightning-fast speeds. Chen's expression changed drastically. The speed of the thunder was too fast. There was no way to avoid it. Boom! Just as the liquid thunder was about to strike Chen, rolling black flames suddenly erupted from his body, forming a massive pair of black flame wings that shielded him. Bang! Bang! The liquid thunder struck the black flame wings, creating violent waves before gradually dissipating. "Thank you," Chen breathed a sigh of relief, knowing it was the nine-nether sparrow who had come to his aid. Without it, he would have been in serious trouble with those bolts of liquid thunder. The seal and the white dragon spirit pearl should be breaking now, the nine-nether sparrow's voice echoed in Chen's mind. Upon hearing this, Chen quickly looked up. The white dragon spirit pearl, immersed in the thunder river, was losing its brilliance under the violent power surrounding it. As the light dimmed, the dragon patterns etched on the surface of the pearl slowly began to fade. The dragon patterns on the white dragon spirit pearl disappeared rapidly. In just a few dozen breaths, they were completely gone. As they vanished, Chen could clearly feel a surge of pure and vast spiritual power erupting from within. If the spiritual power inside the white dragon spirit pearl had been constrained before, it was now truly unleashed. The seal is broken. Chen's eyes were filled with excitement. After much effort, he had finally unlocked the seal within the white dragon spirit pearl. Whoosh! The black flame wings that had been protecting Chen suddenly reached into the thunder river and grabbed the white dragon spirit pearl, pulling it back with great speed. However, in the short time it took, the black flames on the wings began to dissipate slightly. Chen extended his hand, holding the cool white dragon spirit pearl. On the lightning strike platform, Chen gazed at the warm white dragon spirit pearl in his hand, his excitement nearly impossible to conceal. However, he quickly regained his composure and did not immediately investigate the mysteries of the white dragon spirit pearl right there. With a flip of his palm, he put it away. At this moment, the thunder river in the sky was still wreaking havoc across the land. Seeing this, Chen leapt off the mountain peak and darted swiftly across the ground. The disturbance he had caused in the area had been immense. He had already sensed a few prying gazes directed at him, so it was clear that he couldn't stay here any longer. He needed to find another location to cultivate. Chen flew low, dodging the streaks of liquid thunder falling from the sky. Several minutes later, he had exited the range of the storm clouds. The terrifying thunderous fluctuations gradually weakened. The pressure around him dissipated, and Chen quietly sighed in relief. He then accelerated to his maximum speed, quickly leaving the area and finding a secluded spot to land. It was a low hill, unremarkable among the barren peaks, and with the towering mountains surrounding it, few would notice it. Chen landed on the hill, cautiously surveying his surroundings before sitting cross-legged in relief. He clenched his hand, and the white dragon spirit pearl appeared in his palm once more. Now, he had the time to properly inspect the white dragon spirit pearl, which had been freed from its seal. Its appearance hadn't changed much, except that the white dragon tattoo on its surface had faded. Inside the pearl, white mist seemed to have seeped into it, swirling around the pearl's surface, giving it a mysterious and extraordinary look. Chen held the white dragon spirit pearl in his hand, feeling the overwhelming spiritual power within. His expression became serious as he took a deep breath. Pressing his palms together, the white dragon spirit pearl floated between his hands. Dark spiritual energy poured from Chen's palms, wrapping the white dragon spirit pearl in a tight cocoon. The moment his spiritual energy made contact with the white dragon spirit pearl, The pearl erupted in dazzling light, enveloping him. As the white light surrounded him, Mu Chen's vision blurred. When it cleared, the scene before him had changed drastically. The towering mountains had vanished, and before Mu Chen lay a boundless white world, like a vast white ocean. There was no visible end, and the swirling mist carried immense spiritual energy. This is, Mu Chen gazed at the white, foggy world, deep in thought. This should be the world inside the white dragon spirit pearl. He had tried to enter it before when the seal was intact, but had always been rejected. Now, with the seal broken, he had finally been able to enter. He looked around, hesitated for a moment, then walked into the deep expanse of white mist. With each step, the mist parted. As soon as Mu Chen moved, the surrounding scene shifted once more. The white mist rapidly receded, revealing mountains and rivers, indicating a vast world. Mu Chen stood on the horizon, gazing down at the unfamiliar world. As he was lost in thought, blood-red waves suddenly surged at the far end of the world. The blood-red tide carried with it an endless chill, swallowing countless life forms in its path. Even the energy of the world was obliterated by the encroaching blood-red hue. At the front of this blood-red tide, numerous figures ascended into the air, trying with all their might to block its progress. Yet, their powers were far too insignificant to resist the tidal surge. Countless despairing screams filled the air, and the entire world descended into a terrifying apocalypse. It was a cataclysm. The blood-red hue spread throughout the strange world, consuming every living being. Not only life forms, but even the energy between heaven and earth was tainted. A world once full of life was now being destroyed. Mu Chen, drenched in cold sweat, watched this scene in shock. His mind was filled with dread. What was this blood-red tide? How could it be so terrifying? He focused on the blood-red waves. There, blood light condensed, and a shadow emerged. A phantom covered in blood-red scales, resembling a demonic god. As his gaze fell upon it, Mu Chen was immediately struck with shock. The scene before him began to shift. It seemed to be someplace from this soon-to-be-extinct world. There, at the peak of towering mountains, several figures tore through rifts in space, escaping just before the blood-red currents could obliterate the world. Mu Chen watched those figures, and one of them, with white hair, seemed strangely familiar. Is that the White Dragon Supreme? Mu Chen's heart jolted as he gasped aloud. The world before him faded, as if time itself passed by in a blur. When Mu Chen regained his composure, the surroundings had returned to the vast, white expanse. Sweat drenched his forehead, and his heart still throbbed with lingering fear. The earlier scene had left a profound impact on him. What were those bizarre blood-red creatures? What exactly had they been? And among those who escaped from that doomed world, could one of them really be the White Dragon Supreme? Indeed, I am one who escaped from there. A faint voice suddenly rang out, and Mu Chen, startled, quickly looked up. In the midst of the vast white space before him, the white mist began to gather, accompanied by the low, rumbling sound of a dragon's roar. The mist coalesced into the form of an enormous white dragon soaring into the sky. The white dragon circled and then settled in front of Mu Chen. At the head of the dragon, amidst the flickering light, a figure sat. This figure had hair as white as snow, but his skin looked youthful, and his eyes, a pair of white pupils, seemed strangely out of place. The figure sat upon the dragon, and those white pupils locked onto Mu Chen. Heh? It seems you've broken the seal left within the white dragon spirit pearl. The figure with white eyes spoke, his voice calm and warm, echoing through the vast white space. The White Dragon Supreme? Mu Chen was shaken. He had seen this figure in the spirit vault space, though back then it had been blurry. Now, the figure was strikingly clear. And it was this clarity that allowed Mu Chen to feel the terrifying pressure of supremacy. Even though this being had already fallen, that supreme aura still lingered. I am Mu Chen, the Junior. By chance, I obtained the White Dragon Spirit Pearl and rashly broke the seal. If I have disturbed you, I ask for your forgiveness, Senior. Mu Chen cupped his hands, speaking with caution and care. Though the White Dragon Supreme had fallen, The mere remnants of such a being could still pose a great threat. It was best to remain humble. The White Dragon Supreme, with his white pupils, gazed at Mu Chen. He smiled lightly and waved his hand, saying, "Since you have obtained the White Dragon Spirit Pearl I left behind, this must be fate between us." Mu Chen nodded. After a moment of hesitation, he couldn't help but ask, "What exactly was that scene I saw earlier?" The blood-red creatures had made him feel a chill run down his spine. A whole world, millions of lives wiped out. It was terrifying. "It was just some visions I experienced." The White Dragon Supreme smiled faintly, speaking slowly. "This great thousand world is vast and endless, a place where countless dimensions intersect. The dangers here are beyond what you can comprehend." Mu Chen fell silent. Although he hadn't experienced such terrifying events, he could still sense the immense danger. What exactly were those blood tides? Mu Chen asked, still feeling uneasy. "They are a faction of the extraterritorial evil clan, which we call the Blood Evil Clan. The world you saw destroyed by them was my homeland. Heh, I escaped from a lower dimension into the Great Thousand World." The White Dragon Supreme smiled faintly, a touch of desolation in his voice. "The extraterritorial evil clan?" Mu Chen murmured. The White Dragon Supreme shook his head slightly. "I don't know much about them either. You were born in the Great Thousand World, and you are within its boundaries. If nothing unusual happens, you may never encounter these things. However, for certain lower dimensions, they are the most terrifying force. Once they discover a dimension they can corrupt, the result is the annihilation of all life in that world, just like what you witnessed. It may sound unbelievable, but it is real. Have you heard of the Martial Ancestor?" The White Dragon Supreme glanced at Mu Chen. "The Martial Ancestor, Lin Dong?" Mu Chen was slightly startled. The White Dragon Supreme nodded. The Martial Ancestor also came from a lower dimension, and his world once faced an invasion by the extraterritorial evil clan. But the Martial Ancestor was not like us. He not only drove them away, but also killed their king. Though that was only a faction of the extraterritorial evil clan, their power is not something a lower dimension can withstand. For the Martial Ancestor to do this with resources from a lower dimension is truly admirable. He surpassed us by far. Mu Chen felt a shock deep in his heart. The Great Thousand World was certainly far superior to those lower dimensions, with far more powerful beings. But the Martial Ancestor, with the resources of a lower dimension, had achieved such feats. Truly, he was an extraordinary figure who could establish the martial realm in the Great Thousand World. Heh, it's been many years since I last spoke to someone. I suppose I've said too much now. The White Dragon Supreme smiled, gradually regaining composure. After all, he was now but a lingering consciousness. He waved his hand and looked at Mu Chen, saying, "Fate brought us together." As soon as the words fell, he waved his sleeve robe, and in an instant, endless white mist surged from the vast, white world. Within that mist, an overwhelmingly pure and immense spiritual power surged. The White Dragon Supreme smiled faintly. With a single motion of his finger, the world was stirred, and monstrous waves of spiritual energy, as pure as the sea, surged toward Mu Chen like a tidal wave, pouring into him amidst the fierce winds and clouds. The power left for you, how much you can absorb depends entirely on your own fate and abilities. Boom. The boundless spiritual energy, as vast as the ocean, suddenly erupted from the White Dragon Spirit Pearl, continuously pouring into Mu Chen's body. The overwhelming sensation caused Mu Chen to immediately feel a swelling sensation. The spiritual energy within the White Dragon Spirit Pearl was too immense. "I can't absorb it all." Mu Chen's heart shook, and he quickly leaped to the nearest lightning strike platform. He swiftly activated it, causing thunderclouds to gather in the sky. However, this time, the thunderclouds were much gentler than before. Of course, gentle was a relative term. The Thunder Domain's 7th layer possessed an extremely powerful thunder force, one so strong that even those at the early stage of the Heaven Transformation realm couldn't withstand it. Had it not been for Mu Chen's own abilities, he wouldn't have even been qualified to enter this place. The pitch-black thunderclouds gathered above Mu Chen, and the thunderstorm began to pour down on him, striking his body with red marks. At the same time, the thunder force surged into his body through every pore. As the thunder power from the thunder domain poured into Mu Chen's body, it collided violently with the immense spiritual energy from the white dragon spirit pearl. This powerful clash immediately produced an explosive reaction. The thunder force from the thunder domain had a special effect of tempering spiritual energy. As the two powers collided, the spiritual energy began to shrink slowly, and as it shrank, its color deepened and became more refined, almost as if it had become a solid substance. With the aid of the thunder power's tempering, Mu Chen took a deep breath. He quickly began to circulate the great Buddha scripture to refine the condensed spiritual energy, which was then absorbed into his Qi by the small divine soul sitting there. This cultivation process was far more efficient than normal training, and the most important part was that the spiritual energy from the white dragon spirit pearl was pure and unconscious, offering no resistance to Mu Chen's refining. This made the process go as smoothly as flowing water. Within the Qi, the small divine soul was surrounded by radiance, constantly absorbing the spiritual energy that flowed into it. As it consumed more and more, its size slowly grew, and the spiritual fluctuations it emitted became stronger and stronger. The light emitted by the white dragon spirit pearl grew increasingly intense, eventually enveloping Mu Chen's body entirely. Above his head, the black thunderclouds continued to wriggle, while the gentle thunderstorm poured down like a heavy rain. The thunder force surged into Mu Chen's body, tempering the spiritual energy from the white dragon spirit pearl. Mu Chen kept his eyes closed, his expression focused. He simply activated the great Buddha scripture to continuously refine the energy, without taking any other measures. For now, he just needed to absorb as much of the power from the white dragon spirit pearl as possible. However, he also remained cautious. This rapid increase in strength, though swift, had to be controlled. If the power surged too quickly, causing the spiritual energy to become unstable or leading to an imbalance, it would not bode well for the future. But for now, everything was still within Mu Chen's control. The cultivation had already fallen into a steady rhythm. Time passed quietly in this focused cultivation, and 5 days swiftly passed. The seventh layer of the Thunder domain was vast, with few people around, as very few could reach this level. Since Mu Chen had chosen a secluded spot, no one had disturbed his training during these 5 days. Over this time, the spiritual energy fluctuations emanating from Mu Chen's body grew exceedingly powerful. Crash! Thunderstorms poured down from the heavens. His clothes had already been reduced to dust by the thunderstorm over the past 5 days. A faint silver glow now emanated from his skin, a result of the constant tempering by the power of thunder. Between his palms, the white dragon spirit pearl slowly rotated, pouring a pure and endless stream of spiritual energy into his body, as if it would never stop. However, Mu Chen did not accept this seemingly endless infusion. His eyes suddenly opened, and as they did, a surge of thunder light appeared in his black pupils. The thunder light seemed to form thunderbolts, shooting out from his eyes. A powerful wave of spiritual energy spread from Mu Chen's body, sending rocks on the ground around the lightning strike platform flying away. Under the influence of this spiritual energy, even the rainstorm that had been pouring down was blocked within half a meter of Mu Chen's body, only piercing through again after a few breaths. Mu Chen exhaled a long breath of white mist tinged with lightning, his gaze gradually calming. Then, with a shift of his mind, he noticed the changes within his Qi. His divine soul had now expanded a full circle, with spiritual energy rippling around him. Inside his divine soul, an exceptionally powerful spiritual energy fluctuation permeated. This fluctuation was several times stronger than before, far surpassing the late stage of the heaven merging realm, but still slightly short of the heaven transformation stage. The quasi-heaven transformation stage. A satisfied smile appeared on Mu Chen's lips. His strength had undeniably undergone a leap, directly advancing from the mid-stage of the heaven merging realm to the quasi-heaven transformation stage. In doing so, he had skipped over the late stage of the heaven merging realm. Quasi-heaven transformation stage. Mu Chen clenched his fists, his mind moving. The black flame-like dark spiritual energy surged out like a violent tide, creating a massive black smoke that shot into the sky, a towering force that even the torrential thunderstorm could not shake. He was far stronger now compared to before his breakthrough. Chen lowered his head and looked at the white dragon spirit pearl in his hand. It had grown much dimmer, and the white mist swirling within it was no longer as bright as before. Yet, the spiritual energy within it was still far from exhausted. Clearly, this was due to Chen's self-control. He had not recklessly absorbed all the power left by the White Dragon Supreme. Although doing so would certainly push him into the Heaven Transformation stage, it would also negatively affect his cultivation foundation. Chen was not a short-sighted person who would sacrifice his future for short-term gains. He held the White Dragon Spirit Pearl, his mind moving again as he re-entered the white, mist-filled world. There, he saw the White Dragon Supreme sitting on the White Dragon made of mist, its form now faded significantly. Quite rare. The White Dragon Supreme smiled slightly when he saw Chen, speaking words that were somewhat difficult to understand. Chen was also momentarily stunned. The White Dragon Supreme's words, quite rare, clearly did not refer to his leap from the mid-stage of the heaven-merging realm to the quasi-heaven transformation stage. After all, even an idiot could achieve such a feat with the opportunity he had. Reaching the heaven transformation stage would have been a simple matter, and Chen's pace was already considered quite slow. The spiritual energy I left behind, although it no longer has consciousness, was still cultivated by me. When infused into a person's body, it can be easily absorbed. However, it will always differ slightly from the spiritual energy one cultivates themselves. The White Dragon Supreme smiled faintly and said, "This difference is incredibly small, and perhaps invisible, but the path of cultivation is exceptionally demanding. A tiny difference might become an obstacle in the future. You have resisted the temptation of such a sudden power surge, and that is quite rare," the White Dragon Supreme said with a softer smile, clearly impressed by Chen's actions. Chen, slightly embarrassed by the compliment, scratched his head and said, "Senior, you're overpraising me. In this world, only the power you cultivate yourself is truly reliable. I'm already very content with this opportunity. If I were to greedily seek more, it might be too much to bear." Over the years, Chen had cultivated steadily and firmly, with a solid foundation. Although the power left by the White Dragon Supreme was tempting, it wasn't worth damaging his foundation for. The Supreme might be powerful, but one day, Chen believed he would reach such a level and even surpass it. The White Dragon Supreme nodded slightly, a hint of admiration in his eyes. Then he patted the White Dragon beneath him and said, "My consciousness won't last much longer. The remaining power in the White Dragon Spirit Pearl can be used by you in the future. Also, if you encounter a powerful enemy, you can detonate this White Dragon Spirit Pearl." "Thank you, Senior." Chen expressed his heartfelt gratitude. The White Dragon Supreme smiled faintly and said, "It's just that I noticed you're different from ordinary people. This consciousness of mine is maintained by the spiritual power within the White Dragon Spirit Pearl. If you had absorbed it all before, you wouldn't be able to hear these words now. As for what remains, it seems you're not destined to receive it." Chen was stunned. "What remains?" The White Dragon Supreme smiled again and lightly patted the White Dragon beneath him. The dragon quickly shrank and transformed into a scroll that seemed to be made of dragon scales. On the scroll, ancient characters were engraved. Chen's gaze landed on the scroll, and the ancient characters, like a dragon soaring, etched themselves into his eyes.